Just a few things that I was thinking about in my life, thinking of my younger self and thinking of going to sleep when I was a child, trying to pray the rosary before I went to bed. Later, some years later, like doing an exam of conscience before I went to bed, or kneeling down in front of my bed, even though I shared a room with my brother. And then when I was out and living on my own, kneeling down at my bed. Uh, trying to spend some holy hours then in my life as a college student. I was really seeking something to just find the quiet. One strange experience I had was I found solitude in sitting in a metro station tunnel, just an empty metro station after I was working at a job to help me pay for college, and sitting there for quite a long time. And once in a while, I took a drive out into the country and stayed at a little motel, out in the country, a quiet place, looking for just a serene place to think and ponder things. Began to kind of see my life in a longer fashion. I began to invent a little game in my head of the game of life, but it was a Christian game where I had come out of the middle part of the board and now experiencing real life. In the priesthood years, trying to make sure that I had time to sort things out and have reflection time, take time to get away and do retreats. And one of my favorite experiences, I had a boat and I went out onto the boat, onto the Potomac River, Patuxent River, and just floated for a long, long time. Just me, myself, and God. And usually a dinner with me and a drink. And just use that time. At a crisis, critical point in my life, I experienced some difficulty, and I remember my wounded self, and remember Henry Nouwen, the hermit up in Genesee, up in the New York State, wrote a bunch of things about being a wounded healer. But he said that when you get healed, then you have things to share. But first you have to recognize your wounds. And, I knew as a Christian, I knew I belonged to God, but there were just deeper things I had to experience, and I had to get there. And I took a sabbatical in my life when things were difficult. And I'm thinking about that because I lived in a rectory, and in my time in my sabbatical, and everybody in that rectory now has passed away, including one of the people that just died this week. And it got me thinking about that place where I was for a while in sabbatical, but also still working or doing masses and stuff, but taking much more time for quiet. Remembering even that John Michael Talbot ministry that caught me in college, and later, began to think about coming to the quiet. I don't get enough quiet in my life, but when I take it, I'm richly rewarded. Now I'm thinking of how I take it now, and where I find it, and what it does to me. I need to take time to be with the Lord, or sometimes just to be. I still enjoy taking walks because it gives me time away from other people mostly. It gives me time to act as if I'm walking with the Lord next to me, and we can just talk. It's sort of like a rocking chair for me. It's more like walking a path. I guess I'm still on the game of life model, but I'm working further along, but there's still a lot to go. And how are you doing in your experience, in your faith? As a priest, I've had a chance, by being 40 years of having this time to ponder, to reflect, to pray, to be, so that I have something to give to people. I often feel like, what do I have to give, you know? And I became a priest not to celebrate me and celebrate myself. I'm kind of an outgoing person in the church, and I'd like to, have creative ideas and do a lot of neat stuff. But the main thing I need to be is this man at peace with God, that has something that I can share with you and others. And that's what this back of the book says. There's a voice. Did you read that? There's a voice within you. So at this point of the book, the voice is speaking to Daniel. And that voice is the voice of the Lord. And how much are you hearing that voice in your own life? Hi, it's Father Barry, and we're doing the book Rocking Chair Prophet, and we're on page 37, Ezra's Dream. So Daniel is getting back in touch with people in the town after his long absence. He's coming back down from the mountain. Now he's living in Charlie's house. Charlie's bequeathed the house to him and the rocking chairs. And Ezra comes to say, I was handling your affairs, and since you were gone, and taking care of things, and I'm doing it all for free. And then Daniel says, oh no, you should charge something that's fair to compensate yourself. And then Ezra says something, oh, I wouldn't dream of it. And this is where the word dream comes up, and we go for many pages talking about a person's dream. So Daniel now sees clearly. He's had that experience of solitude for so long and seeing things honestly and truthfully. And he says, truthfully, you're a man that has not lived out his dream. How does Daniel know these things? Well, this is the prophetic gift that he's been given. And Daniel says, I've known you a while. What is your true dream, not living it? And it turns out that Ezra had a dream to have a bakery and to have people gathered, eating. And so Daniel decides to just bring out the dream in Ezra and get him to seriously look at it. So in this book, Rocking Chair Prophet, then the book is asking us the question, what are our unrealized or put aside dreams? What are things that are the abundant the happy life? Not the worldly happy life, the godly happy life. When God's happy and we're happy, living to please God, and God is pleased, and therefore we're in contentment, and we begin to realize our inner meaning, our inner joy. The Crazy Old Man, chapter 20, is he goes back and tells his wife, and it's a story of her seeing that the man had a true encounter, and that pursuing his dream is she'd actually like to live the rest of her days with a man who is pursuing his dream and being happy. They're comfortable, they've had enough things in their life, but to live the dream, could it be possible? Asking for help, chapter 21. Daniel, he's described what he looks like, a little bit of an imposing figure, and it talks about him running into another friend named Sean, and or Murph, And let's see what is in there. Well, Sean's this really big guy, 300-pound guy. And it's a story of him just asking some questions about the healing that his old buddy Daniel did and what it really took place there. And in the end, the answer is mystery and miracle. You either live your life as though nothing is a miracle, or you live as if everything is a miracle. And that is Daniel's answer to him. People started coming to Daniel's house now, and he has his rocking chair there, and people come up and sit next to him on another rocking chair, and they come to this house, and people are coming from wide and far. And so he's talking to this fella, Jacob from Pittsburgh, and he's teaching that Jacob could use the experiences in his life as defined as midlife crisis, and he could just focus on crisis, or he can focus himself on another energy, a totally different energy, opportunity. So what are we looking at? In change, there's opportunity. And so he's trying to help Jacob catch on to what opportunity is. He explains that this inner conflict that you're experiencing has a purpose to help you discover unrealized potential in your life and to grow and to look clearly then and see the ways you sabotage yourself. And so he's telling Jacob to look at things just a little differently. Now we're kind of coming to some of the points made in other Matthew West books. You'll see in another chapter here, he'll use the word best version of yourself, the best version of yourself that you can be. That's just another whole book that Matthew West wrote. In a review of a parishioner, they said that if you've read Matthew West stuff, he's going to kind of go back to several points he's made in other books and throw them in here in The Prophet, speaking from the port. So it may sound like some familiar to some people who've read his books before, and it is true. He's kind of going over some other points in this book with his rocking chair prophet. Chapter 24, awareness. We have, lessons again on the porch, where to himself, Daniel's realizing all of his experiences of life are heightened because of becoming just fully human and alive to the spirit. He's soaking in life much more, and he's realizing he has to fully experience everything. And I think that he writes down some advice for people who are coming to see him as they're waiting for him, and he's going to try to bring them into the fullness of their self. He's going to try to help them see how they can be fully themselves, truly themselves, and strip away the pretenses. And so on Sunday morning, you have him at church. So it's thrown in there on chapter 25. And he explains to Javier, comes back to his house, some of the experiences in his life. And Javier talks about something that was in his life. And then they began to uncover some of Daniel's former pain with the girls dying, and relating it to the thing that Javier was experiencing that day. And they realize they've made quite a connection with each other, and just keeping it real. In chapter 27, in the rocking chair prophet, reminds me of the rich young ruler that comes to Jesus, but he went away sad because he had possessed many things. He didn't fully take the offer Jesus was presenting him, but he's gonna expect some sacrifice, but also some soul searching, that the man was caught up in the world, that he thought he was living everything well, keeping all the commandments. But Jesus will say, well, truthfully, I'll ask you to do something, and it will reveal, and you're saying no to it, that you're not being real to yourself. So the brutal truth, chapter 27, is a story in this book about Daniel helping this guy Jackson to see that maybe his life is not as sweet and easy as he's acting like it is. And why has Jackson come to see the prophet Daniel? And so Daniel says, confront the brutal truth about yourself in your life. Expose yourself to yourself. I like that line, you know. So we look in the mirror, but really, or look to the soul of ourself and say, who is that? So Daniel gives a whole bunch of questions for Jackson to think about. And then he says, silence and stillness with those kind of questions and finding answers helps your soul go deep. And you get a true essence of the you that you are. And he says this needs to be a habit of solitude for it to keep working. Then Daniel gets a prophetic thing about the weather and says, hey, everybody needs to go somewhere. And throughout this book, Daniel kind of knows certain things about the people he's talking to. He can know things that would be private things that nobody would know, but he knows it, or he picks up on things. So I've actually known some deep Catholics that are practicing this kind of level of perceiving things in other people. In fact, just this past week, I was having a conversation with someone about it, where we know someone that's pretty deep, and he was seeing things in them. And people like the fact that he has that ability to help you help yourself by pointing things out. It's like he could read souls and see grave sins in people's lives. So we were talking about him. And then the chapter 28 is about conversations about love. And you know, this chapter has a lot of interesting things in it, especially for people who are trying to find true love, find true friendship, try to find, you know, true community. And so this whole discussion is really like a collection of Daniel's nuggets on what's the meaning of love, what is love, and how do you know you really have it. Well, I see the battery on my phone is getting down, so that's kind of a signal. It's a signal, it's a sign that you gotta wrap up this little section here. So I was thinking about the gift of perception in the Holy Spirit, enlightened by all the truth in our Catholic faith, and you know, our faith growth, our experience. And I remember being in a room and assessing a room of fellow believers, and they didn't say what I was perceiving. I don't think it was welcome that I would share what I was perceiving, but this is what I could have said in the room. There's a spirit of anger in some people here. It's pretty strong. Spirit of independence that's also not leading you right. And entitlement and separateness due to too strong an ego of yourself to the other. There's a judgment that's not the good kind of judgment of our faith going on in this room with some people. There's a one-sidedness instead of a balance going on here. Words about loving Jesus and living a holy life are lacking from the discussion here. There's some hostility towards me, only because I represent the church or Christ, but not really about me personally, but I feel it. So have you ever perceived things in a spiritual way like that? You're seeing a situation. Sometimes you could say, all right, I'm not going to engage in this because it's not going to profit anybody. Or when you're with non-Christians or people not in faith, then you would say, I really should not challenge this person or expect too much of them because they are a bit in the shadows here and they're a bit blind by it and they're stubborn. And so this isn't the time to battle them or ever point fingers. Instead, just let them be, but love them, show unconditional love, show care for the other, and that's it. Now, I hope that my sharing in the last 2-3 minutes here doesn't sound like I have a too lofty opinion of myself. I'm a wounded healer, as this book describes, Janlo describing himself. We're wounded healers, and we all need something from each other, walking toward the light, toward Jesus Christ and glory. We all need each other in it. And it's best to be humble in that approach. But humility doesn't mean that you deny gifts of God that be given to you. Those gifts are meant to be used, and always to the glory of God and not to you.